Welcome back to the Axis Football Draft. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, our league was put on a temporary hold. We apologize for this inconvenience and are grateful for any of you who have stuck around. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, every team finished the draft virtually, with no press coverage, due to the extreme circumstances. Now that every team has already selected their players, we will simply reveal who each team picked in a quick-fire style presentation. We will showcase the rest of the draft over the next few days. Without waiting any longer, welcome to the remainder of the first round of the Axis Football Draft. With the 13th overall pick, the Washington Senators select Ray Capetillo, linebacker, Baylor University.
The former linebacker of the year was slated as a first-round pick in 2018, and he proved it again after putting up 137 tackles, 13 sacks and 3 interceptions. Ray Capetillo is a projected perennial All-Star.
With the 14th overall pick, the Indianapolis Gladiators select Damian Walter, wide receiver, LSU.
Coming off of a third consecutive SEC All-Conference selection, and putting up 1,836 receiving yards and 23 touchdowns, Damian Walter opted for the Axis Football Draft, where he seeks to electrify a team's offense immediately.
With the 15th overall pick, the Tennessee Bloodhounds select Adam Cunningham, quarterback, Michigan University.
After putting up 4,505 passing yards and 37 touchdowns, Adam Cunningham looks to take his talents to the pro league and bring his excellent leadership and talent along with him. Expect Cunningham to be a perennial All-Star.
With the 16th overall pick, the Pittsburgh Ironhawks select Brent Mathis, wide receiver, TCU.
Brent Mathis exploded onto the scene in his last 2 years, racking up 2 Big 12 All-Conference selections while finishing his last season with 1,591 receiving yards, 17 touchdowns and only 2 drops. Expect Mathis to make an immediate impact.
With the 17th overall pick, the Arizona Heat select Jorge Walters, wide receiver, UTEP.
After 4 consecutive CUSA All-Conference selections, Jorge Walters finished his year with 1,789 receiving yards and 16 touchdowns with only 1 drop. Walters will be a deadly threat in the passing game even if he has no help.
With the 18th overall pick, the Dallas Lawmen select Delney Cummings, quarterback, Tennessee University.
After finishing his junior year with 6,481 passing yards, 48 touchdowns and 11 interceptions, Zelly Cummings made the most of his air raid scheme accomplishments and opted for the draft. Scouts believe Cummings could reach a perennial All-Star level of talent.
With the 19th overall pick, the Seattle Bruins select Aiden Bowers, wide receiver, Florida International University.
After 4 consecutive years of top-end consistency, Aiden Bowers enters the draft after racking up 1,089 receiving yards, 12 touchdowns and 133 catches out of 137 targets. Bowers looks to be the favorite for the #1 option in Seattle's passing offense.
With the 20th overall pick, the Baltimore Braves select Max Mercado, quarterback, Texas A&M University.
Max Mercado entered the draft with the highest completion percentage of college football with 80%, as well as throwing for 5,481 yards and 38 touchdowns. After winning the Battle of Texas game, Mercado looks to be on track to being a perennial All-Star.
With the 31st overall pick, the Chicago Blackhawks select Darnell Fayton, quarterback, Texas University.
Although he lost the Battle of Texas game to Max Mercado, Darnell Fayton still lit the college football world on fire. He threw for a Titanous 5,532 yards, 50 touchdowns, all while completing 70% of his passes. Darnell Fayton is an easy lock to be a perennial All-Star.
With the 22nd overall pick, the Denver Mountaineers select Jacob Yarbrough, wide receiver, West Virginia.
Jacob Yarbrough easily took the #1 wide receiver spot in his freshman year at West Virginia, and he looks to do the same heading into the draft for whichever team drafts him. He finished with 1,281 yards, 13 touchdowns and 5 drops and is projected to be a perennial All-Star.
With the 23rd overall pick, the Oklahoma City Cyclones select Johnny Sparks, wide receiver, Georgia Tech University.
Johnny Sparks showed the league why he is the fastest wide receiver among all incoming rookies, as he posted a 4.19 for his 40-yard dash at the Combine. He collected 1,207 yards with 15 touchdowns and 3 drops. He will be the fastest wide receiver in the league to date.
With the 24th overall pick, the Boston Whalers select Miles Foster, wide receiver, Syracuse.
Miles Foster was the best wide receiver almost every game in 2019. He racked up 1,343 yards, 13 touchdowns and only 6 drops on 123 targets. He also collected 4 straight ACC All-Conference selections and will probably add a deep threat to Boston's deadly offense.
With the 25th overall pick, the Cincinnati Royals select Larry Doyle, wide receiver, East Carolina.
Larry Doyle became one of the biggest deep threats in college and put his final stamp on it this year by putting up 1,493 yards, 17 touchdowns and only dropping 4 passes. Larry Doyle will be an obvious number 1 wide receiver for the Royals after they fell to the Wranglers last year.
With the 26th overall pick, the Vancouver Mallards select Alex Serna, wide receiver, Alabama.
Alex Serna was the spotlight on offense for Alabama all 4 years he was there. He posted 1,729 yards, 22 touchdowns and 9 drops while collecting his 4th SEC All-Conference selection. Serna looks to improve a woeful Mallards passing attack.
With the 27th overall pick, the Montreal Terrapins select Keaton Kennedy, wide receiver, Clemson.
Keaton Kennedy was a fast-rising star in Clemson, which is why he left for the draft after his junior year. He posted 1,486 yards, 12 touchdowns and 4 drops with his 3rd consecutive ACC All-Conference selection. Kennedy will easily be a top player in the Terrapins' offense.
With the 28th overall pick, the Detroit Firebirds select Lane Sandoval, quarterback, Auburn.
Lane Sandoval was a rising star in Auburn and took his chance when he saw he was rated a first-round pick. He finished his last year with 4,783 passing yards, 34 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. He will be a threat to look out for in the coming years.
With the 29th overall pick, the Nebraska Thunder select Diego Dawson, wide receiver, University of Kentucky.
Diego Dawson helped put the University of Kentucky back into the conversation during his 4 years there. In his final years he posted 1,302 yards, 16 touchdowns and 8 drops. Dawson looks to make an underrated Thunder offense more deadlier.
With the 30th overall pick, the Minnesota Pride select Sergio Turner, quarterback, Oregon State.
After his 2017 award for Best Quarterback, Turner showed that he still had incredible potential. However, he also proved that he was a high-risk and high-reward player. He threw for 5,630 passing yards and 40 touchdowns, however he also threw 30 interceptions.
With the 31st overall pick, the Chicago Blackhawks select Brandon Hopkins, tight end, Michigan University.
Brandon Hopkins is a tight end who can move like a wide receiver while having the strength of an offensive lineman. He won Best Tight End his senior year after putting up 1,237 yards, 12 touchdowns and no dropped passes. He will easily be the best offensive player in Chicago.
With the 32nd overall pick, the Los Angeles Tide select Eli Beindel, wide receiver, Ohio State.
Eli Beindel was Kendall Ortega's favorite target at Ohio State and for good reason. In their final season together, Ortega connected with Beindel for 1,345 yards, 19 touchdowns and only 7 drops. The Los Angeles Tide will hope to utilize him as a top wide receiver for years to come.
With the 33rd overall pick, the Atlanta Razorbacks select Cooper Mathis, quarterback, Oregon University.
After being pegged as a second-round pick his junior year, Cooper Mathis stepped up and put up the best numbers of his career to boost him to a first-round selection. 4,362 passing yards, 31 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. If Mathis continues, he could be a perennial all-star.
With the 34th overall pick, the New York Barons select Darrell Carroll, quarterback, Oklahoma State University.
After breaking every Oklahoma State record in just his second start, Darrell Carroll seeks to prove he wasn't just a product of his team's scheme. He entered the draft after submitting 5,009 passing yards, 39 touchdowns and only 9 interceptions. He hopes to break New York records as well.
With the 35th overall pick, the Orlando Rockets select Aiden Matthews, wide receiver, Miami University.
Aiden Matthews put the air in air raid for Miami. He put up 1,532 yards, 18 touchdowns and only 9 drops as he led Miami to the college football playoffs. The Rockets hope he will be able to replace Antonio Bullen, who left via free agency to San Francisco.
With the 36th overall pick, the Axis Football Grand Champions Carolina Rebels select Alexis Hammond, linebacker, Texas Tech.
Alexis Hammond made Texas Tech a vaunted #1 defense in 2020 as he completed his senior season with 184 tackles, 14 sacks and 4 interceptions. 3 interceptions were returned for pick sixes. Carolina hopes to cement their linebacker core and win another Tier 1 championship.
Thank you for watching the 2020 Axis Football Draft. We apologize for the lateness of this draft, but now look forward to starting the second season ever of the Axis Football League. To begin the 2020 season, we will showcase 2 all-star games of Buffalo versus Houston and Dallas versus Las Vegas. We look forward to starting the preseason and hope you will be there as well.